Start off on the right foot, cup of tea, clean like area. Hello YouTubers and welcome back to the channel. In this video we'll be looking at fixing up a repairable write-off. Now this is a repairable write-off of a Triumph 2012 Speedmaster. So this isn't the bobber version, this is the earlier version that's got the twin shocks. Now when you're doing a job like this and you're looking at repairing a write-off, you need to be very careful that you understand the rules in your country when it comes to putting a repairable write-off back on the road. Here in Australia we have very strict rules, and when you put a repairable write-off back on the road you have to take it for an inspection. Now in that inspection they look at all the new parts that you fitted, and you need to show every part that you fitted was owned by you, and that means most of the time you need to have bought it new and you need to have a receipt for that purchase. Now you've got to be careful it doesn't get out of hand, because what can happen is you look at a bargain, like this was $1,000 this bike. Now on the market, fairly decent condition, you'll get $6,000 for this. Now that leaves $5,000 in repair costs and whatever else you've got to do before you can put it out in the market and hopefully get a bit of money back. Now when you are changing things like front forks, they'll actually want to see that you've purchased from the OEM. So if it's a safety part like front forks, they'll expect to see OEM forks. Now OEM forks for this is $1,000, so straight away you're $1,000 into your $5,000 budget. Now really important to do a good survey of the bike, find everything that's broken, make a list and price it all up, and right from the get-go have an understanding of how much this is going to cost you, and make sure even when you've done that, make sure that you've got a little bit extra in there, because what you're going to find is there's going to be more stuff that you haven't actually budgeted for. So I've done a really good survey on this. We'll go around, we'll have a look at it, and we're going to do some little interesting things as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to change, one of the things we're going to do is going to change the front wheel and put a Harley front wheel on it. Now why might we do that? Well, Harley wheels are really cheap and you can find them anywhere. So when you want to change the look of the bike, if you want to put spoke wheels on it or whatever you want to do with it, it's much easier to find Harley parts. So we'll go through the conversion and what you need to do to make sure it's a safe conversion from a Harley wheel to the Speedmaster. So as you can see, it's really heavy front end damage. Now luckily it looks like the lowers are actually okay. It looks like it's just the uppers, just the actual tubes themselves. Now the wheel itself is scrap. There's no way you're going to repair this wheel. It's got a few holes in it and big hole down there. We've got the disc, but we don't need that because we're going to be changing the wheel as we spoke about. It's really ugly when it comes to paint job. So someone's just got a black rattle can and gone all over this bike, and it's pretty ordinary. I've got to be honest, it's probably one of the worst paint jobs I've ever seen. They didn't cover anything up, they just literally sprayed everything with the rattle can. Now the exhaust is okay. It has got a little bit of damage, but it's just cosmetic damage, and once we use a bit of wrap, you know, a bit of paint, that's going to start to look pretty good. Now the casing, very important. Make sure your casings aren't damaged, because if your cases are damaged, that's a massive amount of money you've got to pay out. Also look at your cylinders, make sure there isn't any damage to your engine itself. Now this, luckily there is no damage. The rear shocks are badly damaged. There's no way they're going to be recoverable, so I am going to need to find some rear shocks for it as well. Now luckily I've got some rear shocks, so I won't have to buy them. As normal, tail lights damaged. It's got this horrible box that's been put on it. Now the indicators, although they look okay, they're not actually legal, so they're going to need to be replaced. The seat looks okay, it's all in one piece. The tank is actually pretty good. There's no dents on the tank, there's just this disgusting paint job that's been done on it. I see it's everywhere, it's absolutely everywhere. Even the chrome parts, you can see it's not been prepared or anything, it's just been basically sprayed over. So that's all going to have to come off. As you can see, the tank, both sides, there's no dents or anything like that. Foot pegs and controls are all damaged. Obviously the front mudguard is damaged. And the foot pegs were all bent, so that's going to need bending back. So that bar is bent, but that can actually be just heated up where you want it to bend back, and then bend it back. So we'll go through doing that as well. And once we've fixed everything up, or once we've priced up all the parts, we'll start fixing everything up. Now I haven't ran this bike, but I did see the photographs of the accident at the scene, so it was definitely running and riding when it had the accident. The other things you've got to look at is, you know, simple things like are your bars bent? Is your brake cylinder broken? Because these things, they can all start to add up. And then once they start adding up, you're then going to end up running out of money pretty quickly, and it's going to end up being more than what you expected to pay. So no more left to do but to kick into it. So we'll start with the front end, and we'll start looking at the damage and what we've got to do when a bike's had heavy front end damage. So first thing we do now is start the job right, and that's with a clean work area and a cup of tea. Now when you're working on a front end that's been damaged, you need to be really careful that you're not going to get caught out by anything that could cause you harm. So first thing you've got to do is make sure your front tyre pressure is down, especially on a damaged wheel. Take all the pressure out of it and then put it away. When you're taking these forks, at the moment they're braced together by what's left of the mudguard's bracket. When we undo this, we don't know what's going to happen. Now these springs could be under tension, and if these springs are under tension and you undo this, it could automatically just crack the rest of the fork where it's still holding on, and it could splurt down at you. It could also fire oil into your face if that happens, so just be careful, be mindful, take it slow, and if you feel something's got a lot of pressure on it, if you start winding the bolts out and you can see it pushing against the bolts, then just stop, reposition, and see if there's anything you can do to get rid of that pressure first. So take things easy, do it step by step, and just start to pull off the damaged parts. Right, so that's the forks out. Next thing we'll do is we'll start taking all of the rest of the stuff off the triple T's. We'll pull the triple T's out. We won't be reusing the bearings, so it's really important on a vehicle that's had heavy front end damage. They might feel okay, they might look okay, but they won't be okay. So replace your bearings, replace both your top and bottom of your yoke bearings, your triple T bearings. Also, make sure that your stops are not broken. Quite often what can happen is the stops can break off. Now I'd already checked that, but now I've got a good visibility and I can see the stops are definitely not broken. There isn't any other visible damage on the triple T's at all. So it looks like we've been pretty lucky here. Damage does look like it's limited to the fork tubes.
Always use new fork seals as well as new fork caps. Don't reuse anything from the old forks when it comes to your seals. So take out your bolt from the bottom of the forks. I've just got a split bin puller tool that I use for getting these clips out. And don't forget, you need to get in and take off your retainer ring that sits below the dust seal, just above the fork seal. I'm just using some circular pliers to pop off the lower scraper bush. Now that comes with the new, you don't need to renew that, they will come with the new forks. Have a good look, it's off camera here, but have a good look to see there's no cracks in the top of your fork lower tube. So if there's going to be a crack anywhere, it's going to be in that top section where the seal sits in. Now you probably need to clean it up with a Scotch-Brite ball first before you have a good look for the crack.
Find these little round Scotch-Brite cleaners. Pretty good for getting them clean in there. Get the grease off there so you don't contaminate your cleaning tools too much. So I've got the bearing racer and the new bearing, so you can see these have changed to a tapered roller bearing. Now with these, you've got to try and start it as straight as you possibly can. So it's generally the right size. So this is the bottom one. You see that it just fits over quite nicely on the top one to at least get it started. I'll use that a little bit more. Okay, now we need to go a little bit deeper in. So you can see there's a little bit of a ridge there that it's got to get all the way down onto. So this is where we can get our old one again. Just do the same as before. Just start knocking it in. Now be a little bit careful because this might actually go in and stick in. Oops. It's not helpful. And quite helpfully that knocked the old one back out. When it seats down, it changes time slightly, and that's telling me that it's actually now home. You can also see in there, there's a little bit of a gap that allows you to put a punch on the back of it, one on the front and one on the back, for when you need to get them out next time. Okay, I'll just do the same on the bottom, and then we'll get to greasing the bearings. So after a ridiculous amount of time polishing, we've now got these triple T's looking actually quite good. To do this, you need to get the paint off first, and then hit them with a brown surface finishing pad, and then a green surface finishing pad, and then just polish it up on the wheel. Could do better than that, but for the time it took me just to get here, and I'm pretty happy with that. I'll leave it at that. Now to grease these bearings, this is a bit of a messy old job. The best way to do them, you want to get the grease to go up into the bearing. You don't want it to just be on the surface of the bearing. The best way to do that is to push the bearing with your two fingers and then scrape grease into it from your palm. So you put the grease on your palm, push the bearings, and then you do that. Just pushing it through, and you'll see how it's squeezing through, so it's coming right through the bearing. So just keep turning it round, doing a bit more. It really is a messy, horrible job. And once you've got it all in there, get any excess and just go around the outside. Okay, that's one bearing done. And there's the other one done. Like I say, horrible job. But you need to get that grease right up into that bearing and around the outside. Alright, got a clean pair of gloves on. Drop the bearing over. Now you're going to have to tap this bearing down. It's not going to... Oh, God, it's stuck. Yeah, I dropped that down a little bit too hard. Now, the best way to do this is to find a tube that sits on the inside of the bearing so you don't damage the outer cage. And with a knocking stick, okay, you can use the top nut to pull in the top bearing. So we'll actually end up over tightening it just to pull that bearing in and make sure it's seated. Then pull it back and then go to final torque. Now you shouldn't feel any notchiness or anything like that. There shouldn't be a whole lot of resistance. So just keep going until it seats. It gets tight. Now keep going, because now you're pulling that bearing on. So it's going to go a bit tight as we're doing this. We'll just keep going until it does get tight, and then back it off. Should be any play, up or down, forwards or backwards. Now, it does feel a little bit tighter than normal, but that's just because everything in there is new, and that should start to release fairly quickly. So we're not going to do the final tighten of this just yet, so we are going to take all this off again. But before we do that, I want to do the wheel mount. So we'll get all this put on and then get the wheel mount done with the forks in place, and then we can pull it all off again. Give it one last inspection and then tighten it all up. Okay, so it's not torqued to spec. Like I say, we'll be pulling it all off again. Grease has made a nice mess of that those polished up yokes. Now we've got new bolts in the top, so the next job is put those forks back in. Now this should go an awful lot easier when you come out, as everything's been cleaned. No paint getting in the way. You want to come up just so you don't line it, so you hold fork tubes on. You don't want it so as this is below the level. You want the fork tube to be level with the top of the top yoke. A little bit too far. Okay, There we are. Let's tighten up that pinch bolt. Again, not using a torque wrench because it's coming off again. That's it for today's video. So we got the front forks done, which is the major part of the damage. In the next video, we're going to look at converting the Harley wheel to fit onto the Triumph Speedmaster. So we'll go through what you need to buy and how you need to do that modification. See you next time.